Over the kitchen sink, she waved my passport as flames danced, her gaze fixed on me, a smile curling her lips. "Remain here," she murmured. "Attend to the children, that's what economically challenged spouses do." Little did she know that 3 days prior I had signed documents elevating my worth to $2 billion. As she slumbered upstairs, dreaming of her tryst with another man, I readied a single suitcase, left a game changer on the counter, and exited our house for the final time. My name is Jensen Calloway, aged 43. For quite some time, I resided in a 5-bedroom dwelling in Austin, Texas's Westlake Hills neighborhood, with a panoramic view of Lake Austin that had once left me breathless daily. From a spare room and a makeshift table, I cultivated Veltric's software company, dedicating 16 hours each day for 9 years. I overlooked birthday celebrations, anniversaries, school events, and ordinary Tuesday nights that I later realized were precious. This oversight occurred while being married to Tamara, who at some point came to believe I was inferior. I'll address what I left on the kitchen counter the night I left, but first, grasp who Tamara was when I wed her and who she transformed into, as the woman who destroyed my passport was not the woman I fell in love with. Or perhaps she was, and I spent 11 years failing to recognize it. Prior to delving deeper, subscribe if you appreciate such tales. Comment on a time someone revealed their true character, and share this video with someone needing to hear things get better. Now, revisiting Jensen. I encountered Tamara Delacroix at a rooftop fundraiser on West 6th Street in Austin, spring of 2013. At 32, in the gritty phase of developing Veltrix, I was an entrepreneur who wore a blazer over a rumpled shirt, hoping no one scrutinized too closely. She was 28, working as a brand consultant for a boutique firm and exuding confidence that could rearrange a room. Laughing at something someone said, her laugh echoed to where I stood by the bar with a club soda, and I thought, I aspire to be the one who makes her laugh like that. By the end of the night, I had her contact information. A week later, we were enjoying tacos at Juan and a million on Cesar Chavez, and she was sharing stories of growing up in Baton Rouge, about her mother who worked double nursing shifts to keep the lights on, and how she vowed never to face hardship like her mother did. I admired her determination. I related to it because I too harbored a similar drive. Her craving was singularly focused, unrelated to construction but centered on arrival. We exchanged vows at a vineyard in Fredericksburg, Texas, 14 months later with 60 guests present, string lights adorning old oak trees, and Tamara gracefully clad in a champagne-hued gown that elicited my father's approving remark. "Son, you did well." My college roommate, Derek Ockaffer, served as my best man. He had relocated to Austin the previous year for a position at Dell and provided support during the challenging years of establishing Veltrix, talking me down from more than one precipice. His toast moved half the attendees to tears. It was the most memorable day of my existence. I held that conviction firmly. The initial few years were genuinely fruitful. Veltrix, with about 18 employees, was rapidly depleting funds, causing restless nights. Yet Tamara remained hopeful, offering her support during challenging times when a turnaround seemed possible. She occasionally visited the office, providing meals for the team and spreading word among friends that her husband was crafting something significant. I found her conviction convincing. Our daughter Nyla arrived in 2015, following our marriage by 18 months. 2 years later, we welcomed our son Caleb. Gradually, things began to change. The transformation didn't occur swiftly. It resembled water carving a canyon, slow, subtle, until one day you recognize you're standing at the base of something massive. Tamara increased her spending, not extravagantly initially, but beyond our means over time. Refreshed wardrobe, spa membership, newfound desire to reside in Westlake Hills rather than Mueller neighborhood. It was here that the right kind of people dwelled, I presumed. I stretched our business credit limit to secure the down payment for this house. I convinced myself it was an investment. The companions Tamara introduced shifted as well. They were wives of real estate developers and tech executives, along with one individual who amassed his wealth through private equity, whose means remained unclear. They exuded the unique aura of those who equated their net worth with their identity. They spoke about vacations like others discuss breathing, and boasted about Austin Country Club memberships much as I used to debate server architecture with my colleagues. Tamara seamlessly fit in, while I did not. 2019 saw me overhearing Tamara on a call with her friend Brooke, residing in a glass dwelling by Barton Creek. It wasn't snooping. I merely entered from the garage before she noticed. He's perpetually engrossed, Tamara remarked, imbuing her words with a hushed, sincere tone women often employ when disclosing truths. Indeed, he works diligently, but isn't that common? More than half the husbands in this neighborhood work hard. Jensen lacks the skill to appreciate his possessions. He lacks the knack of living. I stayed in the hallway for roughly 30 seconds before departing through the garage, getting into my truck and driving to Veltrix on Burnett Road. At 9:30 p.m., I was at my desk, penning 3,000 lines of code. This was the sole method I knew to comprehend what I'd overheard. What I omitted to tell Tamara is that Veltrix teetered on the brink of something momentous. I constructed an enterprise data infrastructure system, currently powering essential operations for 3 Fortune 500 corporations. In the upcoming month, I had a meeting scheduled with a San Francisco-based private equity firm who showed subtle interest in acquisition. To avoid premature disclosure and potential complications, I remained discreet about the negotiation. As I focused on my work, Tamara was gradually distancing herself from our relationship. I must mention Nathan Forsyth. His role becomes crucial when discussing the events that unfolded in the kitchen, where he burned my passport. Nathan was 41, divorced, and ran a chain of elite fitness centers sprawled across Austin and Houston, a business known as Apex Performance, which you might recognize if you've driven down South Congress. His body was sculpted by professional vanity and abundant free time. By mid-2022, he seemed to have developed a strong desire for my spouse. I discovered this fact casually, similar to how most people do. A phone left face up on the kitchen counter when Tamara went to pick up Caleb from school. I hadn't been looking out for anything suspicious. I was just getting a glass of water in the kitchen, and the screen illuminated with a message that started, but was locked before I could read further. I stood there for about 10 seconds, then put down the glass carefully and went to my home office, closing the door behind me. I'm not typically a dramatic individual. The people who know me best, like Derek, my lead engineer Priya, my father in San Marcos, would confirm that in any crisis, my initial response is to slow down and collect information before taking action. The same instinct that allowed Veltrix to survive 2 brushes with death and a worldwide pandemic prompted me to remain silent regarding Tamara. Instead of confronting her, I chose to observe. No words were spoken for days. What transpired was an intense scrutiny of her behavior. Once I identified the patterns, they became glaringly obvious. Her phone was always placed face down. Her prolonged visits to the gym, a mere 12-minute drive to South Lamar each way, now lasted 3 hours. A new perfume she wore on Tuesdays and Thursdays, the evenings of her supposed girls' dinners, caught my attention. The vibrancy in her aura was familiar. I had experienced it myself when Veltrix began to gain significant ground, the distinct vivacity of someone hiding a secret they find captivating. I enlisted the help of a private investigator, Roy Sandoval, a former Travis County Sheriff's deputy who operated out of a modest office on North Loop Boulevard and was highly recommended by a corporate attorney I knew. Roy was proficient, discreet, and meticulous. Within 3 weeks, he gathered everything required, in addition to something I hadn't sought. 3 weeks into his investigation, Roy contacted me and requested a meeting at his office. He presented a series of photographs as well as financial records acquired through legitimate methods, joint account statements dating back 18 months. Tamara had moved $83,000 from our shared savings into an unrecognized account over the course of 18 months, in increments ranging from $3,000 to $8,000 at a time, suggesting she aimed for the gradual withdrawal to go unnoticed. I scrutinized those figures for quite some time. Roy remained silent across from me because he was skilled at his job and comprehended that this situation necessitated quietude. "How long?" I inquired eventually. "The financial transfer's 18 months, Roy replied. "The relationship, according to the evidence I've gathered, approximately 14 months. 14 months. At that time, Nyla was in her 2nd grade. After Caleb began T-ball, I had visited San Francisco twice that year for business negotiations, returning each time to enjoy dinner with my family and harbor hopes for improvement. I believed that once the deal was finalized, once the tension subsided, Tamara and I would reconcile. That evening, I thanked Roy, paid him, and drove home. I prepared spaghetti, Caleb's favorite meal, helped Nyla with her reading assignments, put both children to bed, and sat on the edge of Caleb's bed after he fell asleep, listening to his breath for around 20 minutes. At 7 years old, he bore his mother's eyes and my forehead, blissfully unaware that his life was on the verge of transformation. I didn't cry, although I felt I should. The Veltrix acquisition was finalized on a Thursday morning in November within a conference room on the 38th floor of a building in downtown Austin. Attorney CFO Sandra Whitfield, along with 3 representatives from the purchasing company and numerous documents. $2 billion, $200 million. My 31% share translated to a personal net worth of roughly $680 million post-taxes. I signed off at 11:14 a.m. My attorney offered a handshake. Whitfield, a 6-year Veltrix veteran, was moved to tears before laughing at her own emotions. Stepping onto Congress Avenue's sidewalk, I gazed at the November Austin sky and felt an unnamed sensation that wasn't pure joy, but rather the quiet aftermath of a colossal event. I phoned my father from the parking garage. He said, "Jensen, your mother would have been so proud." At that moment, I needed to catch my breath. No call was made to Tamara. Drove myself to pick up Nyla and Caleb from school, then drove us for ice cream at Amy's on South Congress. Listened as Caleb detailed a cartoon's intricate plot that I wasn't familiar with, felt the bittersweet pang of realizing my everyday life was changing. Only confided in Sandra, my lawyer, and Derek, who arrived from Round Rock and met me for drinks at Hole in the Wall on Guadalupe that night. We sat at the bar, Derek bought the first round, and he said, "You did it, buddy," to which I simply replied, "Yup." We were quiet for a while because certain moments don't require further discussion. My decision, made in private over the past weeks, was this: I wouldn't tell Tamara about the acquisition just yet. I needed to understand her without the influence of money. I had already guessed what she might be like. I had previously consulted divorce attorney Patricia Hale, stationed in an office on West 7th Street, who specialized in high-asset divorces in Austin over a span of 19 years. Patricia was meticulous, composed, and as unflappable as a solid concrete barrier. After reviewing my documents and examining the financial transactions, she presented me with an accurate depiction of what a divorce process could entail. I had also subtly transferred the majority of my personal assets into structures Patricia suggested, all within legal bounds, but safeguarded. For each action, there was documentation. I kept copies of Roy's entire report in 3 distinct locations. I intended to avoid any oversight by being thoroughly prepared. The passport incident occurred a week later, on a Monday evening in November. Tamara entered the kitchen while I was assisting Caleb with his homework at the kitchen island. She was attired for an outing, donning Tuesday's fragrance, yet it was a Monday, suggesting she had grown less meticulous. Placing her handbag on the counter, she divulged with a tone suggestive of rehearsed dialogue from the car her intention to travel to Cancun. "Are you going with Brooke?" I inquired, focused on Caleb's worksheet. "No," she replied, "not Brooke." She declined to reveal further details. I scrutinized her. In return, she fixed me with an expression that was a blend of defiance and relief, as if she had been waiting to cease concealing herself and had concluded that I wasn't worth the effort. "For how long?" I inquired. 10 days, she responded. "We'll be staying at the Rosewood Mayakoba." I was aware of its exorbitant cost. The Rosewood Mayakoba on the Riviera Maya is not the destination for a girl's trip. It's where people go to pretend that everyday life doesn't exist. "I need my passport," I stated. She appeared bewildered. "What?" I repeated. "It's in the top drawer of the bedroom dresser." She looked slightly annoyed when I mentioned keeping my passport with the kids' passports. "Why do you require your passport?" I responded casually, explaining that I kept it for potential business travel. Her response was a quick, disdainful laugh. "You no longer engage in business travel, Jensen. You barely do anything these days. You're not the globe-trotting entrepreneur you believe yourself to be." Caleb looked back and forth between us, then slid off his chair without being told and went upstairs. Tamara waited until she heard Caleb's footsteps on the stairs before speaking again. "Go pick out your pajamas, sweetie," I said to him. "I'll be up to tuck you in." She stated, "I require the use of that drawer," to which I responded, "The passport drawer?" She then disclosed, "I plan on storing some items in there, leaving your passport in your office." After a moment's pause, I replied, "All right, let me fetch it right away." Ascending the stairs, I bestowed a kiss upon Caleb's head, assisted him in donning his pajamas, activated his nightlight, and whispered words of affection before departing. In the bedroom, I located the top drawer of the dresser. Inside, I found my passport alongside the children's passports and an envelope containing Nyla's baby teeth that Tamara had kept for inexplicable reasons. Picking up my passport, I returned to the living area. Upon my descent, Tamara was stationed in the kitchen. I couldn't quite anticipate what she would do next. She stood by the sink and extended her hand. "Hand it over," she demanded. "Tamara," she repeated forcefully. "Give me the passport. I don't want you popping up at any location where I am. Give me your passport." "I won't appear anywhere uninvited," I assured her. She announced that Nathan and she were heading to Cancun, leaving me behind to care for the children, a task she believed I was suited for due to my knack for responsibility. She used the term responsible as one might use mediocre. She suggested I stay home while she relaxed, implying this was the role of a typical husband. When I remained silent, she demanded my passport again and threatened me with an unspecified retaliation if I didn't comply. Upon my inquiry about her threat, she took the passport from my hand, reached for a lighter, and held it over the sink, briefly igniting the corner of my passport before extinguishing the flame. She kept it until the stainless steel sink mirrored an orange glow, then placed it in the basin and turned on the water, making it hiss into a soggy, charred remnant. She glanced at me, smiled, and said, "Stay home." "Lane," she added. She gathered her purse, headed for the garage door, and departed. I remained in the kitchen for approximately 2 minutes. The sink still reeked of burned plastic. Outside, I heard the garage door lift, Tamara's car retreating down the driveway, followed by silence. I stared at the destroyed passport in the sink for a considerable duration. Subsequently, I ascended to the upper floor and examined both children. Neela was already slumbering, one arm hanging off the bed edge as usual. Caleb was in his room, not fully asleep, with night light casting tiny orange shadows on his ceiling. "Dad," he queried. "Yes, son, everything all right?" I assured him. "Everything will be fine." For the first occasion in a considerable span, I genuinely felt convinced. On Tuesday morning at 8, I phoned Patricia Hale. At 8:15, I contacted Roy Sandoval and tasked him with recording Tamara's departure from Austin Bergstrom International Airport, which he fulfilled. At 9, I spoke to Derek and said, "It's time," to which he replied, "I'm heading there." I made arrangements with the school for Neela and Caleb to stay with my friend Sandra Whitfield, my previous CFO, who lived in Tarrytown and had children of similar ages. She arrived Tuesday afternoon to pick them up and take them to her residence. Neela and Caleb thought they were attending a sleepover and were overjoyed. On Tuesday afternoon, I began packing. Unlike dramatically, I did not fling items or clear off counters or leave the refrigerator open. Instead, I packed in my usual organized manner, systematically and precisely. My garments, laptop, and hard drive containing personal files were among the items I packed. The toolbox my father gifted me upon purchasing my first home. A photograph of Neela aged 2, grinning in the grass, unaware of some forgotten moment. A Veltrix embossed coffee mug, a relic from our pre-logo days. Personal belongings I had acquired over time. At 5 o'clock, Derek appeared to help me load 3 crates into my truck without uttering a word. Upon completion, he leaned against the tailgate, gazing at the Westlake Hills residence. The panoramic view of the hills, the long driveway, the stony facade paid for with 9 years of 16-hour workdays, and he questioned, "You're certain?" I replied, "I am." He inquired about the item on the counter. "Taken care of," I nodded. "Are you staying with me until you decide your next move?" I responded, "Until I secure something." "All right." We departed without a backward glance. I wholeheartedly believe that pure cruelty belongs to those who lack better alternatives. My intention wasn't retaliation, it was elucidation. I wanted Tamara to grasp, in an indisputable manner, the nature of what she had abandoned. On the kitchen counter, I placed 3 items. The initial item was an envelope containing all of Roy Sandoval's comprehensive investigative records, images, financial evidence of $83,000 transactions, and a timeline. There was no accompanying letter as the documents stood on their own. The second item was a notice from Patricia Hale's office. This wasn't the full divorce petition, that would be served officially later. It merely informed Tamara of my decision to hire legal representation and directed any future communications to Patricia's office. The third item was a solitary printed page. A press release about a private equity firm's $2.2 billion acquisition of an Austin-based enterprise software company had been circulated via financial newswire service that morning, with the headline, "Veltrix acquired." I underscored one paragraph with a yellow marker, detailing the founder of Veltrix, Jensen Calloway, his background, and the years spent building the company. A post-it note with the words, "Stay home." "Take care of yourself" was attached to the page in my handwriting that has been consistent since elementary school. I left afterward. 9 days later, Tamara returned to Austin. This is indicated by Patricia Hale's process server being present at the house upon her arrival and Roy Sandoval's airport contact confirming the incoming flight. I was not present, and I had no desire to be there. According to information received from Derek, who got it from his friend whose spouse communicated with Brooke, who conversed with Tamara, she entered the house to discover an envelope, a legal notice, and a press release on the kitchen counter. She reportedly stood in the kitchen for quite some time. She attempted to reach Nathan Forsyth, but he did not respond, potentially due to him already being aware of this complex legal situation through his own divorce proceedings. His wife had filed papers while he was in Mexico. Additionally, Tamara called my phone 7 times between 8 and 10 that evening, calls I allowed to go straight to voicemail. Patricia suggested I avoid direct contact with her, and she proved correct. Voicemails ranged from puzzled to forceful, eventually becoming challenging to grasp. By the 7th message, her voice was barely audible, and all she said was, "Jensen, please call me back." I chose not to return her call. Patricia Hale is an outstanding lawyer. The divorce case lasted 8 months, which she considered quite expedient considering the financial intricacies. The $83,000 in transfers were properly recorded and handled. The acquisition funds, secured by the structures we had put in place before the deal was sealed, were dealt with legally and equitably. Tamara received what she was lawfully entitled to under Texas community property law, which was not insignificant, but it was a small fraction of what she had anticipated receiving. Nathan Forsyth's fitness studio business reportedly suffered due to his divorce-related legal issues, although this isn't something I can verify. Regarding my own interests, Nathan Forsyth's business holds no significance for me. However, I am delighted to share that my children are thriving. Nyla, age 9, is reading beyond her grade level and has a keen fascination with marine biology. Caleb, aged 7, progressed from T-ball to Little League. Despite being the poorest fielder on his team by any standard, he doesn't seem to mind, which I greatly appreciate. Their time is split between my household and Tamara's, and while there are challenges in our arrangement, both children are cherished by both parents, which is what truly matters. Recently, I purchased a house on Barton Creek, just a few miles from the old one. Though it may appear modest compared to what I could now afford, I have learned over 43 years that a house's exterior has minimal impact on its interior feelings. Constructing innovative projects in my workspace, still in the initial phase with a crew of 12, carrying the electric thrill of a venture that could either be substantial or inconsequential. I cherish this sensation, as I've longed for it. On alternate Sundays, my father journeys from San Marcos to join me and the children when they're around, savoring traditional pastries from Blanco bakeries that hold memories of my childhood. Caleb affectionately calls them the round ones and polishes off roughly 7 of them, prompting my father's laughter each time. Derek was recently promoted, purchased a home in Buda, and acquired an unsuitable for podcast pet dog, whose name brings me amusement whenever I hear it. Sandra Whitfield serves as the CFO of a medical device startup in North Austin and is thriving. To anyone tuning in who recognizes any facet of this narrative within themselves, let me assure you, people will eventually reveal their true selves. Her small actions signaled her character long before major events unfolded. Tamara revealed her true self when she portrayed her mother's sacrifice as something to evade instead of celebrate. She exposed herself when she structured her social life based on appearances rather than feelings. Each time she uttered the word responsible, with a tone suggesting it was a compensatory prize for unambitious men, she spoke volumes. I chose to ignore these signals. That was my mistake, and I acknowledge it. However, constructing something from nothing, whether it's a business or a life, teaches you to discern between reality and act. You learn that those who remain during hardships differ fundamentally from those who appear when times are easy. And you learn, gradually, often painfully, that no level of achievement can replace being truly understood by the person sharing your bed. The evening I departed from that dwelling, it wasn't due to my wealth of $600 million. I was departing because she had gazed at me in our house's kitchen, ignited a lighter over a contract symbolizing my global mobility, and instructed me to remain at home while she went to live her genuine life with another person. The wealth offered clarity, but the choice was already set. My passport, for the record, was replaced. I submitted the documents at the federal building on East 2nd Street in Austin and received a new one within 5 weeks. It resides in my desk drawer currently. I've employed it on 2 occasions this year already. During business travels in London and vacations with Nyla and Caleb in Costa Rica, moments of significance occurred. Nyla witnessed a sea turtle nesting on the beach, eliciting tears of joy. Caleb was stung by a jellyfish, overdramatizing the incident, while I felt a long-lost sense of freedom as the sun set over the Pacific between my 2 children. The aspect of Jensen's narrative that struck me most profoundly wasn't the financial aspect or the symbolic burning of his passport. It was when he sat beside his son on the bed, simply listening to him breathe. In that instant, he understood what truly mattered. Regrettably, some people may only recognize your worth based on monetary value. That's not a burden for you to carry. Your responsibility is to acknowledge and value yourself before others do. Jensen understood this and waited patiently for the opportune moment to demonstrate it. When that time came, he did so without fanfare. He placed a sheet of paper on a tabletop before departing with unshaken grace. Such an action speaks volumes, calm, decisive, and conclusive.